What's it be this one like this?
At the peak of his career, Mohbad was signed to Naira Marley's Malian Records and was topping charts in Nigeria.
27-year-old Mohbad, who also called himself Imole, which means light, was a Nigerian Afrobeat star.
He represented a voice that is not normally heard in Nigeria.
But that was short-lived.
We begin this hour with the latest news on the death of Ilario Lua Aloba, popularly known as Mohbad.
From the initial reports, it was being said that he died as a result of an ear infection, but with recent revelations that have been circulating the internet, allegedly, there's so much secrecy shrouded in his demise.
He is crying for justice, and he has to get justice.
Thousands of people have been marching across Nigeria calling for justice following his death.
As of now, Mohbad's wife is now my #1 suspect.
Now, the only thing you ever hear about Mohbad are the events surrounding his death.
When this guy was alive, this guy was shouting, was shouting and complaining. Nobody gave him faith.
So, what went wrong? The simple answer, everything. Mohbad spent his childhood on the streets of Lagos. His family weren't particularly rich, so he didn't have it easy from the start. But he had an interest in music from a very young age. For him, music was his way of expressing himself. So anytime he got the chance, he would drop freestyles at the studio. By 2018, Mohbad started to take things seriously. He realized that if he was ever going to be a successful artist, he needed people to see how good he was. So, he began to post his freestyles more frequently on Instagram, and just then, things kicked off for him.
I recorded a very nice song then, and I started going to club shows.
He released a single in May 2019 titled Ronaldo, and let's just say it was everywhere. And one person that couldn't help but notice the new guy was controversial rapper Naira Marley. Around that time, Naira Marley was absolutely killing it in the music industry. Although not on the level of people like Davido, Wizkid or Burna Boy, what made him stand out was his controversial songs. But if you think back, it wasn't just about his songs, he was controversial in every way. So with everything going for Naira Marley, he decided it was time for him to own his label. And that's where Mohbad comes in. You see, at the time, Mohbad was young, inexperienced, and most of all, on his own. So, Naira Marley must have looked like a savior to him when they first discussed the idea. I mean, he was going to be getting a label that would promote his music. And who knows, maybe he could become the next big thing. So, by December 2019, he signed to Malian Music, alongside artists like C Black and Zinoliski. For someone who used to release freestyles on Instagram just over a year ago, this was a big leap. And there was no better way he could have backed this up than to release a banger. So he did just that. His first song with the label titled Komajensu was a huge success. And early on, you could already see Naira Marley's influence in Mohbad's music. But Mohbad was about to drop something even bigger, his first album. It was an 8-track album, and it featured his hit song, Omo, along with other hit tracks. But the album had one major flaw. It was too similar to Naira Marley's style. And in the long run, his overprojection of Naira Marley in his songs would be an issue. A successful first album meant that he got 2 nominations at the 2020 City Music People Award. Now, Mohbad was gradually trying to move away from being just a Naira Marley understudy to having his own style. And that was most evident in his hit song, Feel Good, which was what you call a Mohbad masterpiece. And people simply loved it. It peaked at number 6 on Apple Music Nigeria and had over 30 million views on YouTube. It was the kind of big break he needed, and it kind of made him a lot more popular. At this point, things seemed to be perfect for Mohbad. He was getting hit songs here and there, doing shows, and he even had a good relationship with his record label boss. However, that wasn't the true picture, and everything was about to come crashing down pretty soon because behind the scenes, Mohbad was going through some real issues. On February 24, 2022, Mohbad was arrested by officers of the NDLEA at his residence for possession of cannabis and Molly. His record label boss, Naira Marley, expressed his rage over the arrest on Instagram, asking for their release. And his fans weren't all that happy about it. It felt like Mohbad was being targeted. However, according to the NDLEA, it was a random raid. But maybe it wasn't so random after all. Just think about it. Why would the NDLEA suddenly conduct a midnight raid on a prominent figure's residence? Surely that can't happen without some credible information, or should I say, a snitch. Well, at the time, it didn't look like much. Not until Mohbad took to his Instagram live the next day with claims that Naira Marley was hating on him and was after his life. This fueled suspicions that Naira Marley must have been behind Mohbad's arrest by the NDLEA.
No, my mama saw I don't really mean it like that from my mind. You mean it, so I don't know these people are behaving on me because of this issue. Now they are trying to. Everybody in your world, please help me if I. Whoa, kill me.
Whether what he was saying was true or not, it was clear that something was wrong at Malian Records. But it's not like anyone paid attention to it. To most people, it was just a case of a singer and his record label engaging in small arguments, which wasn't new. And with what happened 5 days later, most people assumed the issues had been resolved. This was after Naira Marley posted a video of him and Mohbad tagged as a Malian. From there on, things seemed to go smoothly. Mohbad kept on releasing new music, particularly his hit single titled Peace in September 2022. It seemed like things had started to return back to normal for the singer. But on October 5, 2022, Mohbad's fans were enraged after he posted a video of him in a white singlet with bruises on his back and neck. According to him, he was attacked by other members of Malian Records on the instructions of Naira Marley. And this wasn't just some case of a random fight. Mohbad alleged Naira Marley beat him up because he wanted to change his manager, who was close to Naira Marley. While it may seem absurd at first, knowing record label bosses, it's not unusual for them to want to sort of control the artists. I mean, it isn't the first time we've heard of a record label boss threatening an artist under him. But in this case, assaulting Mohbad was a step too far, and his fans were livid with Naira Marley. Of course, the usual happened right after, with Naira Marley coming out to deny the allegations, claiming that Mohbad had actually started a fight at the Malian house.
He came here, he saw me in the studio, he came with like 4 people. No, 3, there was 3 of them. All together with him 4. He said yo to me, yo, he sat down, C Black was in the studio, a lot of people was in the studio. The other 2 people was with in the studio, they did not even say anything to me. He just came to fight his manager.
But most people weren't buying that because Naira Marley wasn't exactly the most upright of people. And looking at his criminal past in Peckham, London, stuff like beating people up to exert authority weren't really beyond him. From here on, things escalated pretty quickly, with Bella Shmurda coming out to defend Mohbad before Mohbad made another video accusing Naira Marley of lying about everything. And it wasn't the first time. Naira Marley had a habit of pinning issues on Mohbad, claiming that he was intoxicated. But this time, Mohbad wasn't having that. He reiterated his story about the manager issues, making sure people knew that Naira Marley had orchestrated the attack on him and was constantly threatening him. Now, add that to the fact that Mohbad had been owed royalties since he joined the label, and you start to see how hostile the record label had been to him. On October 25, 2022, 20 days after the assault, Mohbad's legal team released a statement announcing that he was leaving the label. Now that he was flying solo, he could finally just focus on making music. Plus, being alone meant he had all the creative power in his hands, no restrictions. But it wasn't going to be that easy. Years of neglect and threats by his record label meant that Mohbad's musical growth had somewhat stunted. And if he was going to hit it big again, he would need some major effort. The first thing Mohbad did was to unveil his new record label called Imole. But it didn't stop there. All those years of enduring poor treatment by Malian Records weren't going to go unsaid, especially now that he could control the narrative. And what better way to do that than with a diss track? So that's what Mohbad did in a track titled Thief. It was his own way of saying to the world that he was back. However, as we'll come to see, it was the beginning of his decline. Without a record label, Mohbad now had so much to do on his own, and although he possessed his own unique style, he had profited off Naira Marley's music style while he was with Malian Records. It meant that he had a lot of work to do in developing his own style. Now, add the amount of publicity he got because of Naira Marley, and you start to see why he had his work cut out for him. Despite having good enough reasons to leave the label, the months that followed his departure were very hard on him.
They didn't want to pick me for shows because I left the label, and if they want to reach out to me, they still go back to the label, and the label keeps saying that boy is not really okay, like he's going through a lot, and the ship won't have believed that.
But that never stopped him from putting his music out there, despite not touching the numbers he used to. He came up with tracks like Feel Better, Shejeje, Level, Ask About Me, Shino Peter, and Pariwo. It wasn't like these songs were terrible or something. They just didn't get the kind of reception his previous songs did. And Mohbad was gradually becoming aware of that. It explains why Ask About Me focused on his resilience in the face of setbacks and enmity. However, in the track, he assured his fans that his music career is still on track. Seeing how far behind he had started to fall, Mohbad decided maybe it was finally time for his second album. It was one way of showing people that he still got it even after leaving Malians, and if it got enough attention, it might be his ticket to a resurgence. His new album titled Blessed was released on June 30, 2023, and it featured Zlatan and Bella Shmurda, two friends that stood by Mohbad at a time when things weren't going well for him. The album focused on his struggles and was Mohbad's way of sharing his own story, his journey to stardom, and the challenges he still faced. Overall, it was a good work of art, but it didn't do much to help his career. If anything, it showed that Mohbad was past his best. He just couldn't get people's attention like he used to. His album Blessed would be the last time Mohbad's voice will be heard on a new song, at least for a while. And not because he was taking a break from music or something. It was in fact due to what happened in September 2023. Around afternoon on September 12, 2023, the most unbelievable news about Mohbad circulated social media. He was dead.
We begin this hour with the latest news on the death of Ilario Lua Aloba, popularly known as Mohbad.
The next few days and weeks would see many revelations as to the cause of his death. There was just so much out there that you could never tell if it was the truth or a lie. But one thing was clear, something wasn't adding up about his death. Whether it was the way he died or the videos he posted shortly before his death, something had happened to him. Speaking of the videos, there was one where Mohbad was crying on a hospital bed, claiming that he was where he was now because of some strange water he drank back in 2022. According to him, he was the only one that drank the strange water, and Zinoliski and other members of Malian Records watched everything that happened that day. Instantly, the public turned on Naira Marley, who had always gotten a bad rap for his constant normalization of certain wrong behaviors among young people. But it didn't stop at Naira Marley. The entire Malian Records were faced with so much public outrage, including Zinoliski, who many felt had betrayed Mohbad. Everyone believed Naira Marley had a hand in his death and even moved to boycott Naira Marley's music. Seeing as he was getting all the heat, Naira Marley opened up on Mohbad's unstable mental health, stating that Mohbad once tried to kill himself.
There's another time when I was in America and his girl called me to say he locked himself in the toilet and he wanted to kill himself or something like that. Don't kill yourself. If you kill yourself now, What do you want people to say? You just made video not long ago saying if you die, they should hold Naira Marley. What do you want people to say?
He even released video proof where he was trying to talk to Mohbad after he had tried to kill himself. Whether Naira Marley was involved in his death or not may have been up for debate.
He is crying for justice and he has to get justice.
No concrete evidence that this is what happened, this is what killed him.
We want justice for this guy.
I've seen a lot of insensitive comments that Mohbad is the cause of his own death.
My own suspect has always been the 3 boys in the car and the wife. I said it.
But one thing was clear, Mohbad had mental health issues. Ironically, his mental health issues started after he started getting threats from his record label, and his attempted suicide was just proof of how overwhelmed he felt.
Music industry, they very, very, very dark.
His exit from the label came shortly after, and even though he was no longer a part of the label, Naira Marley didn't want to let him go just like that. He kept receiving threats, and on one occasion, one of Naira Marley's associates, Sam Larry, came to disrupt his video shoot. Luckily for him though, he was with Zlatan that day, who quickly came to his rescue. All that took a toll on his mental health, along with his struggling music career. Mohbad was gradually facing a lot inside, though he put up a happy face on the outside. And to top it all, he was a quiet guy, not one to talk about his problems. On one hand, he was receiving threats and was constantly assaulted by his former record label. On the other hand, his attempt at reigniting his music career wasn't exactly off to the right start. Perhaps if Mohbad had signed up for a different record label, things may have turned out differently for him. We'll never know for sure, but while Mohbad was alive, he gave us hits, smash hits. And today, he's still racking up those numbers with his song Peace at the forefront.